Hello and welcome. It is your weekly program that has always been concerned with the virtual gathering. That is the gathering that occurs on air and online. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, thanks for your time. In last week's program, Wade Bascom, who spent his formative years in Bank Hall, regaled us with memories of his beloved community. This week, the program has moved to Government Hill. We begin with Leroy Brewster, placed in the western and eastern boundaries of the community squarely in perspective. That will be followed by a discussion about the roadway, its tranquility, and the changing scenes.
I always categorize Government Hill as starting from by the stoplights right up to Howes Cross Road. Anything above Howes Cross Road is 2 Mile Hill. Anything below the stoplights is going down to Carlton Village. And what I remember as a little boy traveling on Government Hill, just opposite Government House, there was cane on that side. That high hill over there, and it was scary to walk up there because with canes over your head, and the canes keeping some noise, and you got to walk up there. You know, it was scary coming up there, and we had to walk up there. It was my brother and I and our grandmother. We would walk up there because we went to the church in Robert Street, Calvary Moravian Church. So we would walk from here down there and then walk back up. My brother and I used to sit down there at the window, and the vehicles passing up and down, but very few because Government was a very, very quiet place. I mean, far to where you see it is now. It was very, very quiet. And he will say, I can take the M's, anything that mark M. So what you used to do is you put your hand out like that, and if it's 1 M, you get the 1 slap. If it's 2 M's, you get, you do like that. Okay. And I can't beat all the time, and I can't, nothing else in passing. No P's, no O's, nothing else, no G's, nothing in passing here, because I tell you, there were very few vehicles at that time. And the two of us would be there, and that was our pleasure time for a year, and I getting all the lashes.
It was a very nice place to walk. As a matter of fact, the whole place was a nice place to walk. You didn't have to look back. You didn't have to look back. You could walk. You know, we used to sit down out there under the street light, and we would sit down. He may be out there, and another friend from the Ivy would come across, and he would come on Wednesday nights and listen to a thing called Eerie Stories coming from Rediffusion. You could hear Rediffusion in those days because they didn't have the lot of noise that you're getting now. So everything was more sedate, so you could understand what was happening, you see.
It is flat now, but it had more oval in it at that time. No water would stay on it at all. Well, there weren't the kind of curbs you see now there, and those sidewalks. It was grass. And then came and put in the curves in it. It still had the sharp curve, but they put the sidewalks at the two sides. And in those days, they had a man who didn't used to live too far from here, who used to sweep it every morning, and that man would sweep from all the way up Chapel Gap, right down to Bridgetown. Both sides of the road. And he would do that every day. You know how it irks me today to see grass growing in the gutter? Grass could not grow because you're sweeping it all the time. Nobody sweeps it, grass grow. In those days, no potholes. They were smooth, and because of the preparation that they used to put them down. Because as a little boy, I remember seeing how they build these roads. They come down with what they call a boulder. They put down a boulder first, which was a rock about that size. They put them down, and they will roll them, and that would give the roller a good jostle in roll because they are fairly big. Then on top of that, they will put a smaller one, and then on top of that, a smaller one yet. And then they will put tar, and then more rocks again, but a very fine rock. And the roller will pass and crush them as it passed, because they're very small. It crushed them and it would spread out. And the road used to be firm. We'll get some little spots where you'll find, now remember this, some little spots where you'll find like little added drops of tar and so on. We used to go and take a knife or a scraper and scrape some of the tar and make a ball, what we call a little tar ball. And we would knit that with cord and play kneeling down cricket. The years after, they had built the first house opposite Government House on that hill there. It was the deanery, because in those days the deanery was on the corner of Martindale's Road, right where the Queen Viz Hospital is. It was there, and the dean used to live in there. This is the dean of the St. Michael's Cathedral. The moving from there then and carried him up there. I can remember that part. I went to build that house up there. Then coming up, we had Roberts. I always remember Roberts there by the door, staying up there with that pipe in his mouth, and he had these. His mustache was so broad that it had made two curls at the two ends like cat whiskers. But a very handsome looking man. And the building was a very enormous building. It was a very, very big. And in the basement, they used to make what they call bomber soap down in the basement. They also used to make cream soap down in that same basement. And he had little fellas who used to come and take the soap and carry it through the districts in the area and sell them out to varying people. Because there was no tide nor no breeze nor none of those things in those days. So you had to use blue soap.
Robert's Manufacturing was a little further down from my house, and they had a lovely garden, and a lot of people used to come and they get married and used to take all the pictures. A lot of people don't know. They had this lovely, lovely garden, and people used to like to go there and take pictures for the weddings, parties, anniversaries.
When you leave there, you will come to a shop. That was the first shop that I remember coming up there at the corner of Martinique Road. There was a big shop right there. They had was the second house above Martinique Road. They had a man there named Dan Blackett. Dan Blackett. Yes, he had this printery, the Torch printery in Robert Street.
I was born in Government Hill in Gittins Road. For the shops, you had Mr. Messiah, and at that time nobody knew about Parkinson, but he used to shake his head a lot, and people used to tease him, I want to go by shake head Messiah, but I didn't think that was very nice. At that time, you used to get the biscuits, it was in squares, and you would go home, you would buy 25 cents, 50 cents, whatever you want. It used to come in a metal box, and you go, and you used to get a lot of things that you wanted wrapped in this gray kind of paper. But then after he died, and the family moved to the Ivy, and the shop was taken over by Miss Johnson. So you had Miss Johnson, then you had a lady named Miss Clark. Clark's shop was most like a first aid shop. We used to get soap, plaster, or anything used to go to Miss Clark's shop. Maitland now is a shop where you go and you get the alcohol. Miss Johnson, they used to sell that. But when you want, Mount Gay and thing, you used to go by Maitland. But other things, basic things, you used to get from Miss Johnson's shop.
Then when you leave there and you come up the road, there was another shop right by the pipe. Al Lane was the shopkeeper there. And we would leave here and go down there. Mr. Allen, he said, oh, Prescott, 2 grandchildren. And he would, whatever you want, you will get. Then when you leave there and you come up, you pass Gittins Road, and there was the Joneses. I remember the Joneses' house. And above that was Odessa McLean. And there's a road over there in Bell Gully after her, well, she was a school teacher. Yeah. And then at the corner of the Ivy Road, there was another shop. That shop had belonged to Trotman. Trotman that owned the buses. that was his shop, and the house above that was Trotman's house. Trotman had a car that you'll never forget, because in those days there were very, very few cars. The number was 1212, and I always remember M1212. And then you get the Adventist Church. The Adventist Church was there forever, because they kept when the Adventist Church. Matter of fact, that was there. I'm now a Seventh-day Adventist, and I go to that church. When you leave there, you come up, and then you get the Tudors. I remember the Tudors. I don't remember the older of the Tudors, but I remember Joel Tudor. I remember his children, remember his wife. They were there, and above them then you had the same teacher, Greenwich Sherwood.
This is Sherwood in the background, the house, that is. Harriet remembers very well Mr. Greenwich, who lived at Sherwood.
A very famous headmaster named Mr. Greenwich. Used to call him the Grinner. He used to teach at St. Giles, and everybody that went through him would know when you did anything wrong and he was giving you lashes, he would always give you a lash and stamp your foot and tell you, conk. So that was a funny thing.
Well, he was a very strict teacher. He was a cricketer, he loved cricket, and he liked to cross hall. You know, take the bat and swipe like that, just to cross hall. And if you get out with one ball, you don't talk to him when you get back to school. You used to be, what happened to we used to come back in, because you used to play in a cork hat. You know, like what the police officers wear at parade. Used to wear one of them underneath it, was lined in green, something like how up there looks, you see? So it was a white one and the thing, but don't ever come back in. And he's saying that when you see him come back in, because everybody couldn't go down to go watch cricket. You had turns to it, and it depends on who playing. And you sit down there in school there, and he'll tell you something. It wasn't easy. You had to be.
Leroy Brewster has fond memories of the construction of Sherwood.
I remember that house was building, because the guy who worked on the house, the carpenter that worked on the house, he taught me a lot of carpentry. A man by the name of Mr. Best. He lived in the Ivy. He taught me a lot of carpentry. And then when you leave there, you come up to the house there at the corner of Rogers Road, which is Rogers' house. And a white man and his wife had lived there. They called them the Rogerses. And they named the road there the same thing, Rogers Road. I remember them. Coming up above them then was another shop, the mayor's shop. The mayor's shop, that was a big upstairs shop right there. It was a shop selling, rice and sugar and those kind of things. And it was also a rum shop at the same time, because it would sell alcohol. But as little boys, we couldn't go into there. But I didn't know much about that part of it. And right above that was this big long wall. This wall ran for a good 300-400 feet up the road. 300 yards up the road, and that was the Hutchison's wall.
The house of itself, the Windsor Lodge, was up there. Up there, right down the street, there's a tree up there, mahogany tree in the air, and it was high up. It wasn't a very big house, but it was very tall. It was tall, you see, and I had two sisters living there. One was Katie and one called Ethel, and then there were four brothers. One called George, who is maybe known over there. I think George was the first of them all, and then Arthur, and then Cyril, and then one called Eric that used to live above there. They had some connections with down there in Broad Street.
I remember them because they used to take long walks down through the gap on evenings, walk down and walk back up, and because they had a motor car. I had a car. And I remember the chauffeur, Hardin. Hardin, right? Yes, Hardin was the chauffeur. He became a cart afterward. But he was the chauffeur. He used to take them out. They would drive out. You see him driving out and driving in. And they had servants used to work there, and they worked from morning until evening. And then when they had their cocktail parties, because the English people, they would have to work, and sometimes when 12 and 1 o'clock, they're now coming off from work, those maids, and they go walk down through that same dark place that I tell you, because they only had one light here in just opposite this pole right out here.
It was an impressive property with a very tall guard wall. The house on the property was known as Wednesday Lodge. What became of Wednesday Lodge?
What I can remember about that, I think it was a Friday morning I left here in 1968. I went to work at Brighton's, and when I came back up, I saw nothing at all on the spot. I don't know how they could get down a whole building and everything like that there, and everything. They still had the trees, so, you know, but you know, everything clean. I said, well, what happened at all? They did that in minutes. If I knew that would have been the last time I would have seen Benson Lodge, I'd be staying up there looking at it all the time. I couldn't get to work that time. I was looking at it all the time. That would be the last lap. I said, well, anyhow, it's gone, and we had to do without it, because it isn't everything that you can have for eternity. Something must go like that, like all of us.
While you're talking about Hutchinson, they had a big, tall wall right there. If you were walking the road, you couldn't see over it. You'll have to, they had some jagged rock on the outside. If you walk up on the rock, you can look over it. But they had a lady who used to come from the Ivy, and she was called the Death Angel. And every time she came across here, my brother and I would be, our front door had flaps, jealousy window flaps, peeping out, because we were scared. Every time she come in the area preaching, somebody is going to die. And I remember a morning she came, and she looked over that wall there, that same wall, and she says, prepare to meet your God. Somebody is going over there. And the brother to the gentleman over there, which is Arthur, he lived on the other side. He was jumping over the wall. He see her, he said, lady, will you shut your mouth and move it? Oh, you will soon see. She told him so. Next thing you know, the brother died. Brother died. Anyhow, she had a very strong voice, a very, very strong voice. For the lady, a small lady, but she had a very strong voice. But as I told you, I couldn't see over the wall. And she came with a chair that morning. And she looked over the wall, but still couldn't see good enough. So she went up with the same cut rock where the brother jumped over the wall. And that's why they told her met that morning. So everybody got scared for this lady, because anytime you see her in the district, somebody is going. I can remember her well. Her name was Clara Pyle.
We first heard of the name Bottleneck during Spike's Our Forgotten Treasure series. Apparently, Bottleneck seemed to have traversed the entire island working with funerals.
He was tall, and that was taller, and he up there, and you got to climb and go up there, and he always had a pipe in his mouth like that there, you know, on a top hat, like the English people that you see in these. He's very tall and slim, and walk bow-legged, you know, and with his pipe, he had loved the pipe, you know, he loved smoking the pipe, and he go up there, and people didn't like to see him because they all feel that they're going to die when they see him. And we will walk up the Ivy Road and come across Howard's Cross Road and go up. The walkers, you had the walkers, the ladies in the white dresses and so on, the hats on, and they will go up there. And it was beautiful. And then after a time we get the riders, the riders would come behind us, the walkers and then the riders and all that kind of thing. And we used to go up 2 Mile Hill and go to the famous, and if you die today, you're going to bury tomorrow. They can keep you because they didn't have the facilities that they had now, like what they have today.
Now, the presence of burial vaults in a community was an indication of the social status of the residents. Yes, there were vaults here on Government Hill.
Back here, they had a vault, and I can remember in the little way, my little 2 eyes at the time, I remember seeing something like Taylor mark on it, you know, because in those days people could people could bury on the spots. If you had something worth, you know, it was like that. And I believe you will find a few of them in the area.
There is an interesting story about the combination of a marl hole that existed at the back of Wednesday Lodge, its tunnel that connected to the reservoir at Fort George, a burst main in the area, and the design of a school.
They had a marl hole at the back of it, and you had to go down through walk on the tunnel, like to go down, go across to come right away down, and it used to carry water, bring water from Fort George, yes, and it used to bring water down here. And then we used to get water then coming from the bell to come out here. After we had modified the place, the school was to be built facing you like that. And they had a damaged pipe in Rogers Road, so all the water went up in the air, well in the air, and they had to turn the school the other way. That's why it's faced that way now, you see.
On the eastern side of Wednesday Lodge lives Sir Arnott Samuel Cato, a medical doctor by profession and president of the Senate of Barbados from 1976 to 1986.
The house is still there, matter of fact. So it was set back from the road, and there was a lot of trees. So you had to walk down a dark place again if you went there like in the evening time. And there was a lot of bush and so on in the trees and so on. And you know, it was dark walking down there. But I remember Cato, and on the other side of Cato was the same marshal that I told you. Other people live up there, but these are the people who came out. And if you go straight up then, now as I said, as you go straight up then, you're into another area, 2 Mile Hill. And I remember as you're going around the corner, there was a man there who came, I think he came from America or one of those places. I used to call him Father Divine. And he had a car called a Studebaker Lark. And that was a fascinating car in Barbados because it was the only one that had like it. And, you know, everybody, oh, the Studebaker, and, you know, as little boys and things, you know, Studebaker. But he was Father Divine, and he used to keep, like, services at his home out there. That is, just as you're going to go around the corner, there are 2 houses that build there that look close alike as you're going up to 2 Mile Hill. Above that road that takes you out in the back of the 2 Mile Hill housing area. And there are 2 houses right there, right side and side at the corner. Both of them, and he occupied one of those houses.
Government Hill as a major thoroughfare was a transit point for public transportation.
Now I remember the buses passing here. The buses was the Diamond bus, belonging to the St. Trotman. There was just there where Triple D is, right there. Because I remember Trotman House being in St. George, and the bus depot, where the buses put up, the bus garage, was in St. Michael. Trotman had 3 routes that he used to run. Number 19, the first one was Chapel Gap. You can get a bus going to Chapel Gap. They don't hear anything about Chapel Gap anymore. Chapel Gap is still there. They call it St. Barnabas. Right there, a bus would go there and turn around and back down to Bridgetown. Then you had one going to Border Hall. Right up to Border Hall station, and turn around in the station yard and come back down. Then you had one going to Yorkshire. Yorkshire is up St. Patrick's, right? And they would go around that, where the roundabout is now, they used to turn around in that area and come back down to town. You would get a bus about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, but the last bus was, at that time, was anywhere around 5 o'clock. You don't get a bus after that. 5, 6 o'clock, you don't get a bus after that. That was in the 50s and the 60s. Then it started to change. Then you get it run a little later and so on. But there were two bus services on this area because the St. Philip bus used to pass here too as well, which is Route 10. And that had belonged to Dowden. That had 3 stops. That had a bus used to run the 6 roads. That will turn around there at 6 roads and come back down. Then I had one to run to Well House. And that will turn around at Well House and come back down. And then I had one run to Bayfield. That will turn around at Bayfield and come back down. Now the last of those buses used to be 4 o'clock. And you live wherever you live. And now one thing in those days, you could have put the bicycle in the bus. You come down by bicycle And when you're going back up, you can put the bicycle in the bus, and you go up in the back part of the bus, you put in there, and you can travel with your bicycle in the bus, because there weren't a lot of people traveling by bus in those days, like how you have them traveling now. But on mornings, I can remember morning between 5:30 and 7 o'clock. This road was crowded with bicycles and horse cars.
A fella would come down the road with a bicycle and holding it like that there, and he goes spraddling down inside the powerhouse, he used to call it. To turn the bend there, you used to go right in there out of the powerhouse in there.
Right at the bottom of, with the first part of stoplights in Government Hill, there's a little power electrical thing there. Now that was covered, the perimeter was covered with what you call cat wire. The fellas used to come down from St. Philip and St. George and those places, and when they get to the corner, can't make the corner straight into the cat wire. They had to take out the cat wire from there, because they used to inch too many people. When they get to the corner, the speed that they come off the hill with can't get around the corner, so they go straight into the cat wire. They had to take out the cat wire, and then they put a street line fence right over there around there. So when the first land, they had something softer to land on when they're going around there. That's one of the things that I can remember: bicycles and cars. We had some gentlemen who used to come from St. Philip with the cars, and I follow your program very closely. There was a gentleman by the name of, we called him Lama. That's because nearly everybody in those days had a nickname. That's not the man's name, but we used to call him Lama. That's as much as we know. He used to sell potatoes and yams and nettles and slip and that kind of thing. And he will come down this road, sell as he come down until he get down to town. And then when he ready on his road back home, before he starts off, he seemed to empty one of the shops with alcohol. So that time he come out the shop, all he would do is go and lay down in the cart, and the donkey knows the exact road.
You might recall that the same story was shared by Anthony Sargent when we visited his community at Brighton, St. Philip in July 2020. Yes, he spoke about a gentleman who visited Government Hill and who would engage in a libation, and his donkey would take him to his home safely.
Travel exact road, straight to St. Philip. It's somewhere in Britain or somewhere that he lived. And straight up. and when he wake up, whatever time he wake up, like, he home. You know, these are some things that I could remember. Matter of fact, I had a joke with that one, because my brother here, one time he gone and get onto the donkey take off with him. You can remember that, Bruce? Because you get beat for it, so you can.
These precious memories of Government Hill are reference points for our students who should seriously consider these as ideas for research topics. We cannot overemphasize the importance of researching, writing, and documenting our own history. This is who we are. My community, Government Hill, St. Michael. Until next week at the same time, I'm Sherwood McCaskey. It's goodbye for now.